I want to know what this weird yellow orb is to the left of the screen that's blocking off the John Gone poster.
Oh my God, this is the coolest thing. It's a paper pineapple. It's a paper pineapple.
The most irrelevant thing, why is it hanging there?
It was my daughter's birthday recently, so we put up some paper decorations in our dining room, and it was really cool. We've got pineapples, we've got big pink things, and big orange things, and green things, and some multicoloured things.
This is Sheer Isolation. It's presented by Kieran Moore in Trowbridge and Jon Ponting in Cricklade.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is Sheer Isolation. I am Jon Ponting in Cricklade. Kieran Moore is in Trowbridge.
I still am in Trowbridge, John, yes. Have not gone anywhere.
I was expecting to see the kitchen refurb by now, but I can still see you have a pile of tea bags behind you, which suggests it hasn't been completed yet.
It's looking beautiful. I'll send you pictures on Facebook in just a minute.
Mind you have been very busy because I've been at some gigs this week. You've been at some gigs this week. I haven't got time to refit your kitchen.
Unfortunately not, no. It's like a weight around my neck.
A little bit extreme, but never mind. So the purpose of this show is to promote the local music and art scenes across the west of England. We do that by playing a couple of tracks and by having a guest on. This week, we are being joined by a chap called Mike Williams, who looks after the marketing at Pound Arts in Corsham, which is a art centre, music centre, community hub, all kinds of stuff. Like, I don't even know where to start describing it, Kieran.
It's the benchmark of art centres. It really is. It does everything that an art centre should do, and it does it very, very well.
And for people who aren't familiar with it, it's based in Corsham, so it's kind of in the heart of our county. And it's well worth checking it out, just seeing what they have on there, because it's fun for all the family. It's not just evening gigs. They do all kinds of stuff.
All sorts of things. Well, we're going to find all about it in just a second.
That is very, very true.
But first, John.
Okay.
You're going to play. We're going to pick one of your tracks because you haven't picked a track for weeks.
I thought you were going to break into some kind of ad-lib feature then that I wasn't aware of. But yes, no, I'm going to play a track.
No, I'm not. I'm just chatting.
And it's come about from the Swindon Shuffle, which was last weekend. I went along. I managed to get around 3 of the venues. I didn't get to every venue and see every act because that'd be impossible because you've got 4 acts from 4 venues in Swindon running at the same time. But no, I went around.
But John, essentially, did you buy a drink in every pub?
Not the castle, so I'll have to send apologies to the castle.
Oh dear, because the point is to share the wealth, to share the love, to share the community. And it does a really great job at doing that.
But to be fair, all the venues were absolutely buzzing. There's plenty of people in all of them. So that was really, particularly the Tuppenny and the Beehive, really struggled to get into them. They were that packed.
The Beehive particularly, it's a very narrow pub, isn't it?
Yeah. And the Tuppenny is just like someone's living room. They've just turned it into put a bar in it.
That's exactly what it is. It's so beautiful.
Anyway, one of the bands that were playing, now I call them Slagerij. You call them...
Slagerij.
So Slagerij. That's a bit of an Australian thing there. Slagerij.
Slagerij.
Anyway.
We could just call them the Slags, but that would also be really un-PC.
But Swindon 3-piece. They've been around quite a while.
They're a great band. They recently played at My Dad's Bigger Than Your Dad Festival, the celebration of Dave Young.
Uh-huh. I've always kind of put them in a bit of a ska category, kind of poppy ska.
Yeah. Ska punk, that's exactly what they are. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
They've toured America with Less Than Jake as well. You know, they've done really, really well for themselves.
I had no idea.
Yep, there you go.
Well, I thought I'd embarrass them by picking one of their earliest videos. This is from 2009. This is over 10 years old. This track is Off on a Mission. This is the band. This is the track from which I discovered the band.
We're off
That was Off on a Mission from Slagerij. Maybe we should check in with them for the exact pronunciation. The J is definitely silent. We know that much.
Yes.
They were one of the headliners at the Swindon Shuffle last weekend. Before that, they were at the My Dad is Bigger Than Your Dad festival. So I hadn't heard from them for quite a long time, but it's nice to know they're still gigging and touring and recording new stuff.
Yeah, well, they're still active. They're still not around doing brilliant stuff. Just a little bit older now.
I know the feeling. Do we have any product placement this week, Kieran?
Did we do Dan O'Dell? Have we done Dan O'Dell yet?
You mentioned him last week, but you didn't show off what you have got.
I've got it, but I have to wait. They'd have to splice this out of the interview.
Every week.
You know what? Actually, it's too difficult. We'll do it next week.
Fine. In that case, we'll just ignore product placement completely. This was your feature that you brought in as well.
I know. It's because, well, actually, I've got the Bronx album sat in Roger's house from Sound Knowledge. Roger from Sound Knowledge over in Potton. I need to go and collect it. So I'm waiting to get paid because I haven't got any money to give him. Anyway, John, I've got some news.
Should we say that for news?
Yeah, okay, we'll say that for news.
Interview. Right. It's too late to be recording this. Right. Our guest this week is Mike Williams from Pound Arts in Corsham. Now, Kieran, you're more familiar with the venue than myself. So do you want to give us a bit of a rundown about your interpretation of it?
Yeah, it's a small venue, and it punches well above its weight in the sense that it's a small town with a really, really significant art space. It's an art space in its purest form. It has amateurs and professionals from almost every discipline of art you can possibly conceive, from film to physical art, visual art, creative arts, dance, theatre, music, comedy, the works. They literally cover all bases one way or another, and they do it incredibly well.
So we invited Mike on to have a chat, and he starts just by giving us a bit of a rundown about the venue itself.
We do a lot considering the size of the venue, or at least we try to. So we're non-profit, we're sort of charity funded. So a lot of our money comes from donations, arts council funding, all that kind of thing. But yeah, we're a performance venue. So obviously we put on plenty of music as well as theatre, comedy, anything we can get our hands on really. And lots of workshops and regular hirers who come in and use the space. We're essentially just a big community hub for Corsham really. And the surrounding areas. Sort of. I would
say that I think the Pound probably is the perfect example. That was my cat. Sorry, the Pound is a perfect example of how an art centre can be. It's got wonderful visual arts. As you go in, it's got, again, as you say, the performance, but it's all those workshops and all those little workshop rooms you've got dotted around. Yeah, it really is like, I don't know what's the word, the benchmark for art centres, or small art centres at least. It's the benchmark, and it's wonderful to have such an amazing thing fundamentally on our doorstep.
That's lovely of you to say. We're proud of what we do, but and there's always stuff going on. We've currently got ballet students like parading through the corridors, and there's always something.
No, that's brilliant. We'll have a little bit of theatre going on there. Yeah. So, Mike, tell us, what is your role at the Pound? What do you do?
So I am the marketing officer at the Pound Arts Centre. So it's my job to try to get people coming through the door and seeing what we've got to offer, both in terms of, the live performances we've got going on, to the workshops, and, even just to come in and spend some time looking at the gallery, hanging out in our cafe, all that kind of stuff. It's a relatively new job for me. I've worked at the Arts Centre since about 2016. I initially joined as just a part-time member on the cafe, working in the bar, and I've sort of done various jobs here since then, and have now somehow ended up in charge of the marketing. Because
that's a wonderful success story, and goes to show that you can rise through the ranks effectively. That they're going to platform you and support you. That's really, 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 really wonderful to hear.
So Mike, if you wanted to promote just two of the three of the things that are currently happening at Pounds Art, which ones would you pick out as the highlights?
We've got a ton of music coming up. One of my favourites, who we'll listen to later, is Kitty MacFarlane. She's coming on the 4th of December, which is, wonderful folk music, really just intricate and relaxing, and just sort of makes you forget about everything that's going on and just zone out. It's beautiful. We've got some really exciting theatre coming up. There's a piece of theatre at the end of the month called Louder Is Not Always Clearer, which is made by a wonderful artist called Johnny Kotson, who is deaf, and essentially it is about the experience of being deaf, and it's sort of part theatre, part dance, and essentially he sort of incorporates sign language communication with physical theatre, and it's really different to anything we've had here before. And
sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and it's accessible to both, hearing audiences, hard of hearing, deaf audiences. So yeah, that's another thing that I'm personally really excited about.
Yeah, that really is quite special. You should be really proud of that. Well done. That's amazing. I did a show this weekend, just gone, at the Bandstand in Trowbridge, and it's for Starry Eyes, which are a local-based company that they platform teenagers, give them an opportunity to perform. And we're on the bandstand, and we're doing these kids who are just singing. They've never been in front of an audience before, and all the rest of it. And they trot them out one at a time, and they sing their song. And they had this young girl turn up, and she was no older than 11. She had Down syndrome, and she'd never sang in front of an audience before. And everyone's encouraged her, and she does it, and she's brilliant, and it's wonderful. But then she doesn't want to get down. She's so excited. She's loving this experience. So the next girl comes along to sing a song, and this girl who just starts doing BSL Mactom and starts signing the song to the audience. And I was literally in tears, because that is utterly just stunning, completely unexpected. But it brings people that were previously uninvolved or unengaged or unavailable into the story, bring them in. You say, look, you experience this too. And I'm delighted that we are now having those sorts of conversations about being more inclusive. And I really feel like, well, you're clearly streets ahead of us, and that's wonderful. So well done, you.
No, it's great. But I still don't feel we're as far down the road as we should be. You can always do, try to do more. One of the things that happened recently that I was really proud of, we do 2 festivals a year. We do one which is Blue Sky, which is sort of springtime, and it's all very sort of, summery and lovely. And then the other one's in November time, called Magic and Mayhem, which is sort of more dark and Halloweeny, and we do a cabaret and all this sort of stuff. But during the Blue Sky Festival we just had, which was a few months ago, one of the things we did for it was we just put out a load of pianos around Corsham, like the second-hand, freestanding pianos, and sort of just left them out for people to play. So we had one directly outside the Arts Centre, we had one on the High Street, one outside the local Grounded Cafe, and it was one of the most popular things we've ever done in terms of people's engagement, because you'd have just walking down the High Street and hearing people tinkle away, from pensioners playing chopsticks to a 6-year-old doing Mozart or something. And it was just like, it was just so cool, and the amount of people who gave us feedback about it was great. And that was just something that was it served no purpose other than to just get people engaged in. That's absolutely, it's so easy to do, isn't it? You just got to have these ideas, and it's fundamentally very easy to do. That's also wonderful. See, Corsham, for the size of it, is knocking it out the park. Yeah. We try.
Something that myself and Kieran have been talking about on the previous shows in the last few weeks is about venues and gigs and just life getting back to some kind of normality. Did you feel the same at Pound Arts?
Well, how did that work out for you? How have you managed it?
I mean, it's been, we've had the same bizarre journey that every other venue and art centre has sort of had, I think. Or, I mean, we sort of, when did restrictions get lifted initially? Way back in March, April time. Yeah. So we started putting a couple of gigs on then, but they were very spaced out, both in terms of dates and also in terms of how many people we could allow in. So we were down to about 30% capacity in an auditorium that seats about 104.
Yeah.
And so we sort of started there, and then over the summer we managed to creep up to 50% capacity, although a lot of our shows then went outdoors because the weather allowed it, and which has sort of been a blessing in disguise for us, I think, is suddenly realizing there was this big outdoor market for performances, which we weren't tapping into quite as much, but pre-pandemic. And then only recently, I think, sort of start of the month, is we're now back to 100% capacity. And just last week, we had Bookends, who is the brilliant Simon and Garfunkel tribute act. We had them for 2 nights, and both sold out, and which was the first time the auditorium had been full for
Wow.
over a year and a half. And it was such mixed emotions about it, because it was just fantastic to see the place so full and so alive, but there was obviously intrepidation. We're sort of at the point where you're still encouraging the precautions that people can take, but can't realistically enforce them in any way. And so there was this real mixed emotions, but it was a big sense of pride for us and the team to be just back at that place, I guess, of it still doesn't feel pre-pandemic, but it was still just amazing.
So Mike, out of the 5 or 6 years that you've been working at Pound Arts, what would you say is your favourite event that's happened in that time?
I mean, something that I really love and I really enjoy. It's not a specific event, but it's something that we used to do and will hopefully do again soon. The last Friday of every month, we'll invite artists, musicians, to come in and perform for free just in the corner of the cafe. And it's some of the best stuff I've seen has been while working behind the bar, just watching these people perform. I mean, we've had people like Lo Barnes, who's this wonderful singer. She came and did one a few years back, and it's something I really miss. It's something that obviously dropped off due to the pandemic and restrictions, not being able to have that many people in the space, and we haven't sort of been able to program it back in yet, but hopefully from January onwards it'll be something we can resume doing, because it's one of those things where the atmosphere with the right act on the right night, it feels so special to be in that cafe. I think like nice winter's evenings with candles out in the cafe and just people enjoying free music, which is really varied. It's from people doing cool loop pedal guitar sets to playing steel pans. You sort of don't know what you're going to get until you're there. Next. And I miss it a lot, and hopefully we're going to have it again soon. So those are some of my fondest memories here.
I'm assuming that you've got a website where all this information is stored.
We do. It's www.poundarts.org.uk, and we're obviously on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Pound Arts, and you'll find us there. A lot of the stuff we've done recently in terms of programming has been done through digital platforms. Best way to keep up with what we've got going on right now.
Yeah. And I think it is worth reiterating again, you're not just a venue for evening events. You're doing stuff all the way through the day and at weekends, and got all kinds of workshops for kids and education platforms and all kinds of stuff happening there. It's not just about the music and the performance. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a grassroots sort of place for people, particularly children, finding their way into the arts and into music, from things we put on like ukulele workshops, to local people who just hire the space for their piano teaching and guitar teaching and all that kind of thing. Wonderful local choirs use the art centre. It's a really more than just a performance venue.
Wonderful, bro. Thanks for that, Mike. Just the final point to raise is the track that you have picked, and I believe you've chosen the tune from Kitty MacFarlane.
I think we had her a few years back, and we got her back for the 4th of December here at the Art Centre. The song's called Glass Eels, and I just sort of stumbled across it today. It was her announcement video for the tour that she's got coming up, and it was sort of one of those things where I was feeling very sort of a bit stressed this morning because we're working on the brochure to come out and all this sort of stuff, and worrying about getting it out in time. And I sort of saw this pop up on our Twitter feed and sort of put it on, and for a few minutes just forgot about everything.
Who was there when Pangea split? Who saw borders break and continents drift? When shifting rock and heat of time cleft plates apart, pushed ice to brine. Trade winds and the westerlies, the push and pull of the gyre, the glass eel chasing estuaries, to ford and fen, to mud and mire. And as the leaves are doomed to bruise, and the fruit is bound for falling, we are all compelled to move our busy skies and racing ocean, our strange and heady motion. Who saw the muddy eddies and the sediment, and the weathered cliffs forging monuments to the labyrinths that the rivers fill, the days disrupt and the nights distill, the trade winds and the westerlies, the push and pull of the gyre, the glass eel chasing estuaries, to ford and fen, to mud and mire. And as the leaves are doomed to bruise, and the fruit is bound for falling, we are all compelled to move our busy skies and racing ocean, our strange and heady motion. We are all compelled to move side by side, while roaming cliff and waning moon keep time for the tiny travelers on ocean currents, or the desperate flight from east, the steady shifting of populations, or the yearly forfeit of the trees. We are all compelled to move side by side, while roaming cliff and waning moon keep time. Yet here we are in our vice and our vanity, mindless of the irony that while patient science adds fact to fact, hasty man draws lines on maps.
We've just played Glass Eels from Kitty MacFarlane,
Glass Eels. What a name.
who is going to be playing in Corsham on December 4th. So I'm probably doing some other dates in the region as well. So look out for those.
Right, news, John. News. This is the bizarrest news. Last week, I got offered the opportunity to promote Frank Turner again. And in a very, very short space of time, I've turned it around. And Thursday, which was 2 days ago, we announced that Frank Turner will be playing the Forum in Bath on Friday, the 18th of May, 2022. There you go. Incredible.
That's nearly a year away.
I know, good. It needs to be. Pre-sale will go up on the 23rd or 24th of September. But if you're on his mailing list, if you bought the album or any of that kind of stuff, you get advance opportunity to buy tickets. So very excited about this album. I've heard the first 5 tracks, including the single "The Gathering," which is already out there in the world. I've heard the additional 4 tracks. Absolutely fantastic.
We'll have people listening who don't know who Frank Turner is.
So Frank Turner is a Winchester-based, or he was from Winchester originally, singer-songwriter who rose from Scruffy Oik in a punk band to being probably right now the UK's prominent singer-songwriter that's in of that genre. He played the opening of the Olympics when it was held in the UK a few years ago. He played on the little grass mound and he played a couple of songs. And he's just a wonderful human being and writes and creates great music.
A few years, that was 9 years ago, mate.
Oh, God, it really is, isn't it? Wow. Well, he's come a long way in the last 9 years. So
Slagerij had only just released that song that we played earlier.
I think really, they've been going a lot longer than that as well.
Yeah. And also, Frank Turner was also our very first guest.
He was our very first guest, yes.
The government has done it to us again, because last week we were really bigging up and talking about how COVID passports are going to be introduced into nightclubs and large venues. And then within a couple of days of us recording, they decided, nah, we're not going to do that anymore. Good news for you, Kieran.
Well, have they? Because I thought you were going to say just then that they've doubled down on it. Because from what I can see is that on the front pages of today's newspapers, COVID passports are going to be rolled. They are going to be introduced.
Chaos.
So chaos. It is chaos. It's absolute chaos. They're not ruling out another lockdown, etc., etc. It's like I cannot believe we're in this situation. I cannot believe we're still talking about it nearly 2 years later in this context. We need resolution. Just make a decision and stick with it and go with it. Even if it's a decision I despise, at least then I know I can start navigating and working with it. Yeah. I would be delighted if they got rid of it and they didn't introduce it at all. So that would be brilliant, I think. Without getting too political, I don't like the idea of those COVID passports at all. So it would help the event industry if they didn't exist.
In the last week, I'm challenging Big Jeff's supremacy in the number of gigs you can attend in a year, because in the last week, I've been to 6 separate gigs at 6 separate venues.
So that is proper hardcore gigging. Well done, you.
I'm trying to catch up from the last 18 months. But none of those were doing, no venues are doing COVID passports or any checks like that. We just, I think we're being left to it to be sensible.
Yeah, well, I'd like to think so. I think people know enough now that they can make their own risks or own risk decisions. And I think that's fair enough. And just let people make their own decisions. And if you want to go to a venue that's going to be busy, then fine. If you don't, then that's also fine.
If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us shareisolation@gmail.com, or you can just go to www.shareisolation.co.uk. That's share with 2 E's. Find us all the information about us there. I've run out of things to say, Kieran. I think we've got enough content for another week.
Thank you very much, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.